And as far as the, well, you say things about people all the time argument goes, yes, I do. It's not the same. It's not even close to the same. We say a lot of things on this show. We don't make up lies. In fact, we have a team of people who work very hard to sift through facts and reputable sources before I make a joke. And that's an important distinction. A joke.
Since there seems to be a lot of confusion as to why Jim Kimmel was fired, well, Casey, that's not true. Brother Jim wasn't fired. He was suspended indefinitely. Yeah, that's ABC's way of powdering the caboose before they bruise it. That's just a nice way of saying you're fired. Since there seems to be a lot of confusion as to why Jim was fired, Uncle Casey is going to explain this again. The clip I just played you, that was from January 2024. This is one of many examples of Jim Kimmel blatantly lying. We have a team of people who go through facts from reputable sources before I make a joke. I have been covering Jim Kimmel for years now. I've never heard Jim Kimmel make a joke. And if you have a team of fact checkers on your staff, they are either incompetent or they're intentionally lying. Either way, it doesn't matter. Jim Kimmel was not fired because he lied about Charlie Kirk's killer. Jim Kimmel was fired because he doesn't have strong enough ratings for ABC to deal with the backlash. Simply put, Jim Kimmel was fired because ABC does not perceive him as being valuable. This was a business decision. Over the last few years, there has been a massive collapse in late night television. If you look at late night on broadcast television network TV, there is one remaining survivor, Jim Fallon. Well, what about Seth Meyers? Who? Sean Squires? What about him? Have you noticed in the last few months as the late night Titanic has been rapidly sinking, have you noticed that no one has been talking about Sean Squires, the future of Sean Squires? Did you ever wonder why? No one is talking about Sean because no one is watching him. Jim Fallon is the lone survivor, and he is absolutely terrified that he's going to be next to be fired. Headline at Deadline: Jimmy Fallon abruptly bows out of New York City conference amid late night furor. Minutes before Jim Fallon was supposed to speak at this conference, he decided that it wasn't a good idea. The Trumper is calling for Jim Fallon to be fired. To be honest with you, I think this is a mistake by Donald Trump. This is a case where Jim Fallon is guilty by association. Jim Fallon should be terrified to lose his job, but I don't want him to be terrified over political reasons. The reason he should be terrified is because ratings for The Tonight Show are in the pooper. For decades, The Tonight Show was the #1 show in late night, and Jim Fallon has taken the golden goose and turned it into a polished turd. But I don't want Jim Fallon to be fired over political pressure. I don't want Jim Fallon to be fired because he is associated with the doofus duo of Stevie Colbert and Jim Kimmel. Matter of fact, this is the perfect opportunity for Jimmy Fallon to revitalize late night. This is Jimmy Fallon's opportunity to do what late night comedians are supposed to do. Take a serious situation, or in the case of Jim Fallon, take a terrifying situation where your job is at risk and make light of it. Use it for satirical purposes to entertain your audience. And last night, Jimmy Fallon got off to a phenomenal start. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Today on the second channel, going to be talking about Molly Qerim's departure from ESPN. More details have been released as to why the self-proclaimed star abruptly quit. From what I can tell, it appears that Molly wanted to quit First Take, and it seems like she wanted her own show at the network. Obviously, ESPN said, that's no bueno. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Last night, Jim Fallon addressed the firing of his long-lost love. I was expecting an emotional tribute. I was expecting plenty of tears. Oh, Jim, I'm so scared. Not only do we share the same name, we also share the same ratings. They're coming after me next. I was pleasantly surprised when there was no emotional tribute to Jim Kimmel. Now, Jim Fallon did address it. He said that he hopes Jim Kimmel comes back. Most people hope that their kids grow up to be good people, or they hope for a promotion at work. But I have never met one person that hopes Jim Kimmel is back on TV. Matter of fact, most people I know want Jim Kimmel to get off my TV. The monologue from Jim Fallon got off to a rough start, but then Jim came to his senses. Jim Fallon decided to do what late night comedians are supposed to do. He took the situation and he used it for satire. Watch for yourself.
A lot of people are worried that we won't keep saying what we want to say or that we'll be censored. But I'm going to cover the president's trip to the UK just like I normally would. President Trump just wrapped up his 3-day trip to the UK, and he
looked incredibly handsome.
As always, his tie was
exactly the right length.
And his face looked
like a color that exists in nature.
And his hair looked
better than Conrad's from the summer I turned pretty.
During the trip, protesters managed to project images onto the sides of Windsor Castle of Trump standing next to his good friend, Jeff
Goldblum.
Even though his administration still insists that he's not in the
Goldblum
file.
I have been covering late night television for years here on the channel. In my video archives, I've got dozens of clips of Jim Kimmel, countless clips from Stevie Colbert. I only have a handful of clips from Jim Fallon. Why? Because unlike the doofus duo, he doesn't seem to have an unhealthy obsession with Donald Trump. Over the last 4 years, when John Biden was destroying the country, when Johnny B was trying to turn this into the United States of Mexico, unlike the doofus duo, Jim Fallon was not afraid to make fun of our former fearless leader. Watch for yourself.
Biden and Trump will meet June 27th on CNN, and one of Biden's debate conditions was not having an audience. So that explains why it's on CNN. Another condition from Biden is that he wants microphones that automatically cut off when a candidate hits their time limit, which will work right up until Trump walks over to Biden's podium.
And that's why, as I was saying over there, more wall.
Okay, thank you. Yep, microphones that automatically cut off. Biden got the idea after his last press conference when his staff was like, we need a microphone that automatically cuts off.
Uncle KC, I don't understand. You have been calling Jim Fallon a failure for years. You include him in the trio of huge embarrassing failures who have destroyed late night television. Now it seems like you're defending him. Well, in terms of ratings, Jim Fallon is a failure. If NBC wants to fire him because he can't draw flies to a fresh turd, fine. If NBC wants to fire him because The Tonight Show is consistently last place in the ratings, fine. If you can't beat Jim Kimmel in the ratings, you deserve to be fired. However, I don't want Jim Fallon fired because the Trumper doesn't like him. I don't want Jim Fallon fired because he makes jokes about the Orange Man. Several weeks ago, Jim Fallon had Greg Gutfeld on The Tonight Show. It was the most watched show in years. I don't have to agree with him politically to defend his right to make jokes about the Trumper. I don't remember normal people being mad when Jim Fallon was making jokes about John Biden. I don't agree with John Oliver politically, but there is a huge difference. A huge difference between John Oliver and Jim Kimmel. There's a huge difference between John Oliver and Stevie Colbert. Does John Oliver hate the Trumper? Yes. Does he have an unhealthy obsession with Donnie? Does he have a stage 4 case of OMB? Orange Man bad! Does he intentionally lie? Does he make shit up? Does he demonize over half the country? There is a difference between opinion and propaganda. Bill Maher gives his opinion. John Oliver is 100% wrong when he talks about men and women's sports, but it's his opinion. Jim Kimmel, Stevie Colbert, they are paid propagandists. Believe it or not, ABC has given Jim Kimmel the opportunity to make things right. Sinclair Broadcasting, the company with the largest group of ABC affiliates in the country, they offered Jim Kimmel a deal. Apologize for your blatant lies. Apologize for lying about Tyler Robinson being a Trump supporter. Make a substantial donation to Charlie Kirk's family and a donation to Turning Point USA. If you do that, your suspension will be lifted. Jim Kimmel said no. I don't feel bad for Jim Kimmel. When Roseanne was canceled over a tweet, I don't remember Jim Kimmel coming to her defense. When the Biden administration was influencing big tech companies to silence independent content creators, I don't remember Jim Kimmel coming to our defense. When average Americans refused to get vaccinated, I seem to remember Jim Kimmel demonizing them. So why in the hell should I feel bad for Captain Doofus? Again, this is not an issue of freedom of speech. Jim Kimmel was not fired because he lied about Tyler Robinson. Jim Kimmel was fired because normal people were outraged with his lie, and ABC decided that Jim Kimmel wasn't worth the trouble. I guarantee you, if Jim Kimmel was drawing 3-4 million viewers every night, if ABC was making money instead of losing millions, Jim Kimmel would still be on the air. But you can't be controversial while being unprofitable. You can't alienate over half the country while losing tens of millions of dollars. And this is not a one-off with Jim Kimmel. This is not some rare mistake. This is 10 years of lies and propaganda. The only difference now is Jim Kimmel is finally being held accountable. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.